to the car. We'll be the passenger. We'll ride through the city tonight. We'll see the city's ripped back sides. We'll see the bright and hollow sky and all the cars and bright guitars. Listen. Oh, the passenger, how it rides. Yeah, the passenger, I ride and I ride. What does they say? Is it a bright and hollow sky? You see the stars come out tonight. You see the city and the rip sides. And all the wine and the ocean drive. And everything was made for you and me. All of it was made for you and me. But it just belongs to you and me. Let's take a ride. Say it. I like this music. Oh, the passenger, how it rides. Oh, the passenger, he rides and he rides. He sees things from under glass. He looks through his window inside. He sees the things he knows are his. He sees the bright and hollow sky. And this land is yours and mine. And this land is yours and mine. And this land is yours and mine. So let's ride and ride. Sing. Passenger, I ride and I ride. I talked to a girl named Camille the other day. She was a girl from Britain living in Denmark. And I said, Camille, look at that beautiful Rolls Royce. And she said, Jimmy, I hate cars. And I said, why? And she said, because I ain't got no money. And if I can't afford it, I hate it. And I see pinheads with Cadillacs. And I see my girl, she's not coming back. And I see my life drifting by. And I know I'm gonna die. And I know I'm gonna die. So before I die, I'm gonna let you remember I cried of life. And when I see all the shit that's going down, this is what I say.
So, good evening and welcome to At Nick Hodge. Hello, internets. So, this week is Punk Rock Changed My Life. This edition is with Susan McGillivray, or at Zuzu on Twitter. And the reason why I'm doing this is to balance out the strangeness that Eurovision will bring later on in the week. We need some real music to balance out that weirdness that comes from Europe. So, Meta back channel producer is DeCrazy1. Please ask her your questions, and they'll pop up on my screen, and I'll be able to answer them. There probably will be no cats tonight from my side, mainly because they were watching Malcolm Turnbull's right of reply speech in the Parliament, right of reply to the budget from a couple of nights ago, and now they're asleep. So they're just dead dog asleep. Been an interesting week. I spent part of my day today at CeBIT, going off on all sorts of things and basically saying how social media is essentially a large circus. It's up on Quick actually, and I'll should put some text on that and publish that, because I was about as eloquent as I get in that hour of the morning. So last week, hopefully everyone was watching Stilgarian Live, we had Stilgarian talk about the zeitgeist of the time, and specifically how it works with music. And sort of in the midst of that, and not having really any show planned for this week, Susan came to mind, mainly because I'd actually spoken to Susan a couple of months ago when I was in Canberra, and found out that so not only is she lived in that strange part of the world, in the west coast of America in the late 70s and early 80s, but was a punk rocker, not just in the audience, not just jumping up and down, but actually on the stage, and she's got lots of stories to tell. So what I'm going to do here is just bring Susan into the conversation and on the screen. So Susan, you are live, you are on the screen. I'm just going to make you a little bit bigger. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you, Nick?
Pretty good for a Wednesday, even though it's Thursday.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. Hello, Internet world. I can see my brothers out there. Hi, Max. Yay! And Lane's there. Yay! They live on a different continent from me. I don't get to see them very often. I haven't seen Lane in 7 years.
So, that accent is definitely not Australian. What is it? Where's it come from?
Canada! I am Canadian.
So that's better than being an American, so we'll get that sort of out the way first.
Yeah, well, Canadians have far better beer than Americans will ever have.
And a sort of a system that actually works as well, but we won't go into that. So, we're talking about music this evening. Susan, should I call you Susan or Zuzu? Where did Zuzu come from? Is that sort of short?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's short for Susan. Yeah, it's nothing special.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Just checking. So, what music did you listen to? You first remember hearing when you were a kid? Back in the dim dark ages, and we won't go into exact dates and times.
Oh, Led Zeppelin.
Zeppelin, good. Yeah,
like everybody. David Bowie. I was really into David Bowie. But the biggest impact for me was probably seeing Iggy Pop in 1977 when I was,
younger.
I was, yes, I was in high school then,
okay,
and we're off to. What?
Sorry, I was just about to ask, because the song we just played before we led into this was Iggy Pop and actually get the name of the band right, Nick. You can see I'm a DJ.
The Stooges.
And the Stooges doing The Passenger, all 7 minutes of it. Now, was he the first band you ever saw live?
No, he wasn't the first band I ever saw live, but he was the first of his type I ever saw live. Before that, I'd seen a lot of concerts, like in huge stadium arenas and Led Zeppelin, that sort of thing. Yeah, the Guess Who, Canadian band. Yeah.
So you found yourself at a sort of an age where you couldn't drink legally. Let's put it that way, so we won't have to release the exact age.
Yeah.
But you went and saw Iggy Pop live. Were you sort of near the front of the audience? And
yeah, it was a very small venue, and it was the P&E Gardens for you Vancouverites there. And Blondie was the opening band, which was pretty exciting. Deborah Harry, just in their early days. And then Iggy Pop came out. But what was really awesome about that was he had Dave Bowie playing on keyboards, and I was a big Bowie fan. I just went, oh my God, what's he doing? Coming off these stadium shows where he's playing to billions of people and playing keyboards with like this freaky, ultra cool guy. Yeah, I was smitten with Iggy Pop. Yeah.
Is it his eyes? Because it was one of the things we talked about as the music was, your playlist was playing, all 1 hour of it. Absolutely excellent choice there. Was it his eyes?
Awesome. Yeah. My mic is too loud.
Yeah, I've turned it down a little bit. That's cool. Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, sorry, but that's just my husband distracting me with little notes. Yeah, Iggy Pop's eyes are awesome. So is his tail. Yeah.
Oh, so the pants that he wore were
no, that
low.
was. Oh yeah. No, he's cool. I mean, obviously, in his eyes, you can just see that spark of that creative soul that I think he is. Yeah, special guy. Still at it.
Yeah, and he's still at it. So, and David Bowie was on keyboards in the band, in the Stooges at the time.
Oh, I don't know if it was the Stooges. I think Iggy Pop had gone into some sort of rehab program, and so had David Bowie at the time, and they were supporting each other, writing songs and playing music together to get them out of some sort of drug-addled craze. And yeah, David Bowie was just playing keyboards. It was cool.
So, how did this impact you? So, you're sort of below drinking age.
Well, I felt really naughty. Would that be the word? Going out and seeing this guy come out on stage and start cutting his chest with like broken glass. And I was, really excited by this. So I thought, oh, I must be a naughty girl.
And did you actually ever meet Iggy Pop?
Well, after that show, my friend Heather and I went and hid in the broom closet to try and meet them. And Iggy Pop came out, and I said, like, hello, and sort of got very shy and embarrassed. Yeah, that was my experience.
We all have a meeting our sort of friends or meeting famous people sort of stories. So sort of with a breaking voice, you said hello, and did he respond?
He sort of went like, "Oh, hi, girls." I was like I said, I was very young.
You're not old enough to drink, so that's probably the best way we'll put it.
Not even close to being old enough to drink. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so how did this impact you? So you've seen Iggy Pop. He's doing very different stuff to the big stadium bands that you've heard and the stuff you're hearing on radio. What happened?
And what was big then was like Elton John and Fleetwood Mac. We're just coming out of that era of that. I don't like that music. Sorry. How did it impact me? I thought, fuck, I can play guitar. So put a lot of effort into staying in my bedroom with my albums and learning how to play guitar. I had been playing the guitar, so took that up and then started playing in bands and started a band with my then 14-year-old girlfriend.
Okay, so she was obviously too young to be drinking as well.
Yeah,
so
too young.
So actually you had learnt guitar at school, so...
Hey, story.
Go for it.
I'm not even going to relate the year this happened, but I got chucked out of art class because I annoyed the teacher. He threw me out of his class. And there were two options for me. This is at high school, and I could either go into typing or guitar. And I said, typing like hell. I'm never going to work in an office. I'm never going to have any need to type. So I went into guitar. And now you should see me typing. It's quite hilarious. Yeah.
We won't go into your day job because this is about your history, which I'm absolutely finding.
You all know that I get on the internet every night and try and use my keyboard. Yeah. I'd be better at it if I stayed in typing, and I wouldn't be typing like I has a problems and stuff like that.
Okay, so now you're a guitarist and you've got your 14-year-old, no, your younger friend in a band. What sort of stuff did you actually, was it punk, was it this hard music that you're playing? You definitely weren't playing Elton John covers or anything like that.
No, we were playing our own songs. Excuse me, Lola.
Yeah.
Can you just go back to bed, please?
Just to point out to our listeners that Zuzu has sort of a similar issue I have with cats with her kids. So That's what happens. It's a family show. Once the kids are in bed, maybe we will use some interesting other words. Although this is being recorded, so anyway, let's go. So, what the band at the time? So, what sort of music were you playing?
We formed a band and well, we were writing our own songs and having a good time about it. We called ourselves the Devices, and we had some older musician friends around that were sort of mentoring us and teaching us how to play better. Some of the Bodines in the chat room and a whole heap of older musicians in Vancouver, and they took us under their wing because we were so young, I guess. And they came up with this name. I think they wanted to call us the IUDs. And we're sort of like, yuck, that's pretty gross. No, we shortened it to Devices.
I've just put a picture up of the Devices on the screen.
That's me. That's me looking pretty young and silly, and my friend Jim.
As you said, you're a guitarist, so you're on the in the images. You're on the right.
I can't see the image, Nick.
Okay, well, yeah. So it's the one on the guitar anyway, with going off. Okay.
And on the bottom left, I'm the one on the left, and we've slicked our hair back for some strange reason because it was the fashion of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you look back at these images.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so where did it lead to from that? So you're sort of now, playing bands in, interesting venues and stuff like that at an age where you couldn't be drinking alcohol. So what happened?
Interesting venues, meaning like in people's basements and in clubs where we weren't actually allowed to be in them. But there was another band called the Dish Rags, and they were an all-female band from Victoria, and we decided that, their bass player left, so we decided that Kim and I from the Devices would join the Dish Rags.
So
and
which
that was
picture
awesome.
should I show our audience? Is Dish Rags Bird or?
No, what's the other one called?
There's Dish Rags Jump, Dish Rags Bird, and then there's obviously some things with Black Flag we'll get to and Get Modern. There's also
Get Modern. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so let's pop that image up on screen here. And pop it up there, and oops, we're going to have some fun with the sourcing here. That one of the faces looks familiar. So, Get Modern or Get Fucked is on the text at the back. And I can see you in this long black coat.
Trench coat, yeah.
Trench coat, whoa,
yeah.
And Bay City Rollers sort of scarf.
Bay City Rollers, yeah, thanks, Nick.
That was for Mrs. Nick Hodge. That wasn't for you, sorry. I'm going to get told off now for saying Bay City Rollers.
Yes, duck away, I'm the short one.
Okay, so Dish Rags. Should we play a Dish Rag song, or is it a little bit soon to do that?
Oh, I don't see why not.
Okay, so...
Nah, I don't care, Nick. Whatever you want.
Okay, so I'm just going to play this, and so you won't hear us for a little while. And so which one should I play?
I Don't Love You.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was Dish Rags. I Don't Love You. Now, where did the name come from? Was it sort of, did it, like most band names, was it one of many that you thought of actually using?
Well, the original name was Dee Dee and the Dish Rags, after Dee Dee in the Ramones, the bass
Yep.
player of the Ramones. Yeah, it was called Dee Dee and the Dish Rags. I didn't have any part in naming that band because I came from the Devices. Yeah,
Yep. So
but then we dropped the Dee Dee. Yeah, but we weren't big Dee Dee Ramone fans by any means. I don't really know why they said that because there were a lot of bands in the days calling themselves, KC and the Sunshine Band or something. Yeah.
now, interestingly enough, the Dish Rags were a support band for a support act for another band.
Yeah, a number of times. Yeah.
So who did they
Did,
support?
did, did, the Dish Rags were actually the first female punk band in Canada and one of the first all female punk bands in the world. And they're credited with playing the very first ever punk show in Canada, opening for a band called the Furies. But I guess in 1979, the Clash decided they were going to come to North America, and Joe Strummer requested that the Dish Rags open for them at their first stop, which was in Vancouver. And what was awesome about that was that the Clash came to town. I mean, Vancouver's a gray, rainy, drab town. We had a fledgling little punk scene with, 100 or 150 people that would regularly come to shows. And the Clash rock up and stay in town for about a week. And they hang out with all our friends, and they're playing soccer, and they're coming to our shows. We had this little club the punks used to go to called the Windmill, and sure enough, the Clash rock up, and they want to see the local bands. It was awesome. But anyway, yeah, they Joe Strummer asked the Dish Rags to be the opening act, and this is pretty phenomenal. I didn't actually play in the band, but I was right at the exact front of the stage, and joined the band a couple months after that. But what was exciting about that was after the show, the Clash came to the party we had, like Art Bergman's house. He's a pretty awesome Canadian musician, and people that he was living with, the Clash came over, and we all partied on all night. Yeah, it was great. The cops did come as well. Yeah.
And partied on as well, or the
And
police.
partied
but
on
that's
and
it, yeah.
chased us. I got to tell you my part of the story though is I went out the back door with the Clash when the police came in the front door, and then went off and partied somewhere else. Yeah, it was awesome.
So you smuggled them out.
Yeah, I just sort of tagged along, put it that way. Yeah, a few of us. Yeah.
And one of the other things is in the stuff that you're posting is I was going to pop this image up, which is the Dish Rag supporting Black Flag. I'll just show this image on screen. So the Dish Rags actually had primary billing with before. Oh no, this is two different dates. So April the 19th, Smiling Buddha and
Yeah.
the Dish Rags. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we supported each other. Yeah.
And Black Flag's a pretty well-known sort of West Coast punk band from that time.
Yeah.
So you toured with them.
No, we didn't tour. That's a Vancouver. That's a poster from Vancouver. But what Black
Okay.
Flag did, was they toured profusely, and they were really into the DIY, do-it-yourself scene. And they would come to town, and they would give pamphlets out and flyers, and go around to the scenesters and the clubs, and make sure that everyone was going to come out and see their show. Anyway, I guess the connection with Black Flag was that the bass player in the Dish Rags and the bass player in Black Flag started seeing each other, and they used to come to town all the time and hang out. And they had a couple of singers, Black Flag. They started with Keith Morris, and then they got this kid, yeah, he's my age, named Ron Reyes, and Ron came to Vancouver and fell in love with this girl, so decided that he was going to quit Black Flag and stay in Vancouver. So Black Flag got pretty pissed off with him. I mean, the story's famous. If you're into Black Flag and read about their history, they talk about him as Chavo Pederast. They didn't like him. Well, what else? Yeah, Ron Reyes and I were pretty good friends, though. So we made a fuck band called Hastily Beastly. We did all
Okay,
AC/DC
so
songs.
let's just pause this on the definition of a fuck band. What that's probably something fairly unique, I think, to the West Coast scene. So what's a fuck
It,
band?
Yeah, it's fairly unique to Vancouver, I think. I mean, Vancouver had this awesome, tight knit little community, and we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have anything, to keep us together other than the telephone, and other than that, we were all kind of, outcasts or emotional orphans or something. So, we supported each other, and there's only so many musicians in town that if you wanted to play a different style of music, then you'd get together with some different musicians and play. So yeah, we wanted to play some AC/DC. We wanted an all female. We wanted an all female AC/DC cover band. So we called ourselves Hastily Beastly,
Yep.
and we got I was Agnes Young, and and we had Molly Young, and we had Bonnie Scott, and anyway, Ron Reyes was in that. We made him Phyllis Rudd because he was on the drums. But yeah,
Yep.
he'd been the singer in Black Flag, but he could also play drums. So, we made this Hastily Beastly fuck band. It was awesome.
And so a fuck band's just
Yeah.
like a mashup, what we'd call a mashup of different people from
It's a
different
mashup.
bands.
Exactly. It's a mashup of musicians, and I think I don't know what was going on in other musical scenes at this time in the world, but in Vancouver it was quite a phenomenon. We would have these shows where there would be just fuck bands, and I think I put an image there of a huge group of people. Can you see that one?
Budstock, 81.
Budstock. Yeah, so nowadays we've got Webstock and everybody's on the stock wagon. But back in 1981 we had Budstock, and it was this one guy, Bud Luxford, that put together all these put together this show of all the fuck bands, and there's the cast. I mean, you can see. I'm
It
standing.
looks like something out of Rocky Horror.
You see the guy with the big giant cowboy hat?
Yep, yep.
That's me right to the left.
Oh, okay.
That little one smoking a cigarette. That's me. Yep.
Yeah, the,
You
the
might-
video might not show it as good as I'm seeing it, but yep, I can definitely see you. Yep.
But that's kind of the little Vancouver scene, and that many people would play together and support each other, and make fuck bands. Some of the names of the fuck bands would be Rude Norton or Stab 'em in the Abdomen or whatever.
Yeah, it's sort of random stuff just to get people together.
Just
So
and to
I have
keep
images. I have images of you dressed in school uniform. Should I erase them from my mind? You were, Agnes.
Oh no!
So.
Show it. That's my fuck band image. Did I? No. Hang on.
I don't think you sent me that one.
No, I
Maybe
do
I'm
have.
not allowed to have it.
I don't know where it is, but I do have one.
Good.
No, I haven't
Okay.
got it here. Yeah. Oh, oops.
Okay, so we're in Vancouver, which is, like you said, a sort of just north of Seattle, on the west coast of Canada. And what's was the population of Vancouver at that time, just to give people a scale?
Oh, probably about 1 million, the Greater Vancouver area then. But yeah,
Sort of like Adelaide sort of is now,
that's
sort of that sort of size.
it's third largest city in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fairly isolated on the west coast from the rest of Canada, from what I remember of my
Yeah.
geography.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of rivalry, East Coast, West Coast, and West Coast was a lot more relaxed in, and just in feel. It had a more of a California feel, being on the West Coast. Than the, Torontonians were more like New Yorkers, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Okay, so when did you venture out of Canada? And did you do it sort of in the back of a van, quote unquote, as a part of as a muso?
When did I go out of Canada? Well, we used to play in Seattle. I got a photo of me in a fuck band as Agnes Young.
Oh no! If you email it to me, I'll pop it in
can't-
and show people.
How can I email you a photo
Oh, no.
on a piece of paper?
Sorry. Oh yeah, it's on the. Let me just zoom up. Zoom. Just wait a moment. I'm going to zoom it in again. Just show it. Put it up to the camera.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so it's sort of pixelating a heck of a lot, but I
Yeah,
think
it's pixelating, but you can see Agnes riding on the roadie's shoulder.
I'm sure your husband enjoys that photo. But anyway, let's move on. So yeah, leaving, leaving, leaving Canada as a band member. You know, where did you head? Where did you head? I should say.
Seattle, probably. Yeah.
Yep, which is
Yep.
only an hour's drive south of Vancouver.
Three, 3 hours.
Three. Okay.
Similar Canberra to Sydney kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And was the scene very similar? Or obviously there were Americans rather than Canadians, but
Oh, in the early days, I don't think Seattle had a scene at all. Honestly, they had a couple of bands, but back when I'm talking in the late '70s and very early '80s, I don't remember any bands in Seattle. Honestly, none of them spring to mind. Not until the mid '80s, and then later on in the late '80s and early '90s, when
yeah,
Seattle
with
became
grunge and Pearl
famous for the
Jam and all that.
grunge. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which we won't go into this evening because we've got a whole
Oh,
lot more stories. Oh, unless you got a story.
I have a story. Yeah, well, another band I played in with Lane. Lane's in the chat room, called Mary Cow, and that was our piss take of America. Um, yeah, we used to play
America.
with
Let me just pop up that on the back of the truck or the pump one.
the
Town
pump
pump.
one.
Pump one. There we go. Let me just pop that up on screen. I'm just gonna do some magic trickery here. Zoom in on it. That's better. So
Yeah, yeah, that's
your
Lane and
hairstyle's
I.
changed a little. Yeah, your
Yeah,
hairstyle's changed.
that's mid '80s, man. I know I look like an idiot, right? Okay, give me a break.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm actually looking at
That's
the shoes as well. It's sort of like they're
oh my
docs.
docs. Yeah, those are my docs. Yep. And a dress. Yeah, okay. And that's Lane on the right. And Lane has been my best friend for years and years and years. And she's on Twitter and she's awesome. Yeah.
Is
But
Lane still
Lane,
playing in bands?
Lane's Lane's laughing in the chat room right now. Lane's a famous photographer, and she's famous for photographing the Web 2.0 scene in San Francisco now.
It's very
So
interesting to be into these sort of early sort of scenes in different places. Obviously music at that time, and now sort of the Web 2. There's probably other things that she was, photographing. Interesting. Anyway,
yeah, Lane is just the coolest. But anyway, Lane came from Seattle. So, and I came from Vancouver, and she moved to Vancouver because of a guy we both knew in common. And yeah, we became really good friends and started this band, Mary Cow, together. And yeah, oh, my Seattle story. There was another band in Seattle called the Crypt Kicker Five, and the guy playing drums played in name escapes me, some sort of grungy band, but he's famous for producing the first Nirvana album, Bleach. So we used to hang out with these guys, the Crypt Kicker Five, and little did we know that coming out of this scene was Nirvana, and we knew the guy that was producing them. Yeah, so it was tight
yeah,
knit
and
with music
yeah,
scene.
because they're relatively small towns at that time. So LA. Did you sort of then sort of travel down? Obviously we sort of in Seattle. Travel to lower parts of the West Coast.
Why? Why did I go to LA? My mother, Max is in the chat room. He was anyway. He's my brother who lives in Los Angeles. But my mother moved to LA in 1980. And so I used to travel a lot between Vancouver and Los Angeles. And, Black Flag were from LA, and I already knew them when my mom moved down there. So I'd hang out with them and see bands in LA. I got really into the LA scene. Awesome music was coming out of there. So I had my father and that part of my family in Canada, my mother and my brother in Los Angeles.
So you could
So yeah,
bounce between the two and have a bed in each place. You had somewhere to sleep.
yeah. Though I lived
So
in Vancouver, yeah.
so what sort of bands at that time were in the punk scene? In LA.
Oh well, Black Flag, the
Yep.
Circle Jerks, the Germs, X was my absolute favorite band of all time. We had one
Okay,
X
just on
clip.
X. You
Yeah.
had a 1X clip. Now there's I don't need to see it, but there's a I believe you have a tattoo.
Oh yeah, I have my little X tattoo. You can't see it, but it's an X, and it's after the band. Yes, I love them that much that I got tattooed, and so did one of the other dish rags, the bass player Kim. We both got twin X tattoos because we love this band so much.
And it wasn't because of the lead singer. It was because
No, no,
from what I understand, he was married or sort of in a
they
relationship
were
with.
they were a married. Exene and John Doe were a married couple, and they wrote the most awesome music and poetry. They met in a poetry workshop, and they came up with the most amazing lyrics and harmonies, and I love them. They're the best. Yeah. So
And so were the Dish Rags together and playing in LA at this time still?
we didn't play in LA. Trying to play over the border when you're Canadian is nigh impossible. You know, the music scene in Vancouver, we survived on beer.
Yep.
That's what you got paid with. If you played a gig, you got a case of beer if you're lucky. A case is only 12, by the way. Not like in Australia where it's 24. Yeah. No, it was pathetic. So, and trying to get a working visa to go across the border. No, you had to lie. You had to lie to get over the border and play gigs. Like when we would go down to Seattle, we'd say we're visiting friends. Well, what if you got all those amps and guitars in the back of your car? Oh yeah, we're just gonna play at the party. That sort of thing. Yeah. In fact, the dish rags Jade, one of the what happened once we went to Seattle, she bought an amplifier and decided to sneak it back across the border into Canada, and they confiscated it, and it was gone for at least a year. So that wasn't. Yeah. No.
I can see some customs guy actually using it for his gigs at that
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Yeah. No, it wasn't easy. Like, hey, every musician I knew in Vancouver, we were starving. Nobody had any money. Trying to tour in the States was, a massive ordeal of getting permission. And if you were earning any money, you had to pretty much give it back to the Canadian government or something, if you got paid at all. I think a lot of the Vancouver bands would travel down to San Francisco in a famous the Mabuhay Gardens, and they were famous for not paying anybody. So you travel and they drive all night long. They wouldn't sleep. Bands would just drive and drive and drive, not take breaks, play gigs, and then not get paid. I mean, that's what it was like for
Yeah,
the
I'm
Vancouver.
sure a lot of speed was taken at those times to make sure they were driving relatively safely.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're
We
all
won't go into
starving.
that.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is just play a Dish Rag song with video because we played "I Don't Love You" earlier. I'm just going to play that now, and we'll be back in just a moment and hear some more
getting bored once again, but this time I just can't take no more. This time I can feel it, and 'cause you're not one that's so suddenly bent. No, I never said it last, but I never thought that I could be living in the
So the Dead Kennedys, I believe that you knew them as well. So we played a couple of Dead Kennedys songs and in the stream earlier. Yeah, so you have a story. Tell me your story.
Oh, the Dead Kennedys were. I can't explain how much I love the Dead Kennedys. I mean, Jello Biafra was the lead singer in this band. They were very political and outspoken. In their later years, I think Jello became a little bit of a parody of himself. But when they
so
were
Jello Biafra. So that
Yeah.
was his stage name.
yeah,
His actual real
that's
name was
stage
Eric
name.
Reed Bauscher. As I
I
researched.
only ever called him Jello.
And Biafra, because, obviously in the late 60s there was this whole Biafra, Africa sort of thing going on, which I don't really understand, but that's where the name came from. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, but the Dead Kennedys spent a lot of time in Vancouver, just like Black Flag. They were because the Black Flag was from Los Angeles. Dead Kennedys were from San Francisco, so they were doing a lot of West Coast touring, the Pacific West Coast of North America. So the Dead Kennedys would come to town, and this is what would happen when a band like Black Flag or Dead Kennedys showed up. They would need somewhere to sleep. So you sleep on someone's floor or their couch, and all the musicians in Vancouver were pretty supportive. Here, come over to my place. Well, yeah. So the Dead Kennedys would sleep at my mom's. This is before she moved to Los Angeles, so it must have been before 1980. So yeah, in 1979 or so. But anyway, then became friends with them, and every time they come to town, we'd hang out and stuff. But one time, we were going home from a gig, and I was getting a ride with a friend. Stephen Macklin was his name, and he happened to be the Katie Lang's manager. That's just a side note.
Yep.
But anyway, we're in the car, Jello Biafra and Steve Macklin and myself, and we get into this car accident. So that's like my claim to fame with Jello Biafra is the time we were in, a car accident on Hastings Street in Vancouver. It was pretty funny, but yeah, in the middle of, just after the clubs have closed, and we get like this big crash, and like, whoa. Yeah. Hello.
So actually on the Black Flag stuff, I believe that you also met Henry Rollins, and I don't know whether Mark Pesci's on the chat, but I've got this weird connection in my
He's
head between
not.
Mark Pesci.
Mark's not. He's in Melbourne or somewhere.
But he'll
told-
listen to the recording, I know.
He'll-
but
yeah,
there's this
he'll listen.
Weird sort of, weird. So I've got this thing in my head, a weird Henry Rollins and Mark Pesci thing. I don't know what it is. Maybe because I'm, Americans and articulate. That's maybe what it is.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a story that will break that connection. That you'll never think of Mark Pesci and Henry Rollins together again.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so Black Flag, they lived in LA, and my mother did as well. So we traveled down and hang out, and like I said, Black Flag had they had Keith Morris, then they had Ron Reyes, then they had Des Cadena as singers. Then it was Des Cadena decided he didn't want to sing anymore. It was too hard on his throat and stuff. So they recruited this young guy from Washington, D.C., across the country. So, my friend Kim and I were hanging out with Black Flag, and that's the new singer. And Henry doesn't know that we're kind of friends with the band and have been for so many years. He's just kind of being a bit rude to us. But anyway, he's got this girl sitting on his lap, and they're kissing and making out, and then this is my first experience with Henry Rollins, and then he looks up at her and he goes, "What's your name again?" And
that's pretty normal with
young men,
with groupies. Yeah, with groupies as well.
Yeah, with groupies, I guess that's it. But I thought, you can't really compare Mark and Henry.
Okay,
It's
I
not
won't now.
fair.
Yeah,
It's not
I'm,
fair.
Mark is much more of a gentleman, I must say.
I'm
So,
sure he is.
so
Yeah.
dish rags. Did you have like male groupies
No.
or female groupies? Groupies at
N-
all?
no.
Okay, just
Actually,
asking.
actually,
Not that you
no.
can admit to on camera, maybe.
No. I mean, I think the bands are more known nowadays than they were then because back then we were all doing this do-it-yourself. We didn't get airplay. We didn't get. You might be lucky if you were mentioned in the media, but we weren't being played on the radio or on television. We didn't, like I said, we didn't have the connections that we've got these days. So it was hard work trying to get yourself known, and I think that the punk bands from back then are known much better now than then. Yeah, that's what
So,
I'm trying to say.
yeah, yeah, no, it's cool. I totally grok that. So,
Yeah.
um, on, one of the things that happened in the early '80s, which all lovers of music saw, which was the absolutely seminal documentary. I still believe it's real. It's definitely not a mockumentary. Spinal Tap. Do you have any good Spinal Tap moments?
The Spinal Tap moments came with the band Lane and I played in, Americow, and it was exactly Spinal Tap because we couldn't keep our drummer either. And I think I think Lane and I were the founding members of this band, and we stayed together through thick and thin, through hell and back. But our first drummer, what happened, Lane? Where did she go? Our first drummer went to India. Yeah, she lied about it. She said, we said, we hear you're going to India. And she said, no, I'm not going to India. And then she did. This, the second drummer went to Costa Rica. Yeah, and he was pretty awesome. Actually, I've got a photo of him and me. Look at my hair.
Oh my goodness, that's like
Yeah,
mid '80s again, and his
yeah,
hair's.
that's mid '80s, and that's Danny. And he was drumming with us for a while, and he ended up going to Costa Rica. So we lose one drummer to India, we lose another drummer to Costa Rica, and then we end up with this guy who's like straight out of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and he didn't last that long in the band either. And then I can't remember what happened. Lane and I went off to uni and did some study, and that was the end of Americow, really. We couldn't keep a drummer, just like Spinal Tap.
Okay. So, one of the things you mentioned was journalism and journalists, I should say, and sort of reporting on the scene, and that's where you got to know people rather than hearing things on the radio. Did you guys hear, the whole, kerfuffle, furor with the Sex Pistols, which, for us, I suppose, uneducated Australians as far as punk is concerned, that's what we think of as when we hear punk, is the Sex Pistols, which, if you want to look in some of my stuff that I've done historically on the Geek Stories, I had Stephen Noble on the show where he talked about garage bands and early punk in the US, and then
Yeah.
the New York Dolls, and then Malcolm McLaren taking that back to the UK, and then starting with Sex Pistols. What was the perception of the Sex Pistols in the serious part of punk?
Well, Vancouver is fairly isolated, and we getting news was a lot harder then. I mean, the Sex Pistols were covered in the mainstream media as when for their trouble. But my father kindly used to bring me home the Melody Maker and the Enemy weekly
Yep.
because I don't know why, but that's what my dad would do, and I would read up about all these bands, and I guess that really piqued my interest. Um, yeah, a lot of Vancouver musicians are quite cynical, and I guess because it was so hard, and we're so separated. Nowadays we've got the connections, we've got the hyper connectivity of the computer, right? We didn't have that then.
So I
So,
think someone's just scored 2 points on their bingo. Yeah, we've mentioned Mark Pesci and hyperconnectivity, but keep going.
oh shit, yeah. Um, what am I trying to say? Like,
Yeah,
no,
so it was
everyone,
sort of, it
everyone
was by
loved
osmosis. Yeah.
everyone loved the Pistols, but In every documentary you see, you'll notice that I didn't include a Sex Pistols clip in my mix at all. I tried to play things that are a little slightly more unusual or that meant more to me than the Sex Pistols. I was far more a Clash fan personally. They were, my favorite band for a very long time.
Yep. So
Yeah.
through one of the things that you had also in your first set of tracks was Joy Division.
Oh,
So yeah, so sort of it's a very special thing because our birthdays are sandwiched around the anniversary of Ian Curtis's death
yes.
this month, and that's why my avatar on Twitter is Ian Curtis, because
Yeah.
I must admit I'm a late comer to Joy Division, and having
Yeah.
watched the documentaries and Control and that sort of stuff and listening to the music, what was the reaction? I sort of meant you had mentioned that
Oh,
they were
I
special
saw.
for you guys as well.
I was online, I guess, when I saw you change your avatar on Twitter, and uh, yeah, when Ian Curtis died, it was the day before my birthday, the drinking age birthday in Canada at that time, and so you can perfectly work out how old I am. But anyway, yeah, so we're trying to have a party, and to celebrate Susan's drinking age birthday, and like the news was out that Ian Curtis had hung himself. It was devastating. We're big fans, and hearing that, the whole scene kind of just like hung their heads and thought, why? You know,
Yeah,
it was
because
terrible.
all you sort of experienced him by was the music, and it would be a little bit hard to sort of
Uh,
understand the
yeah,
backstory that we know now. But
yeah, but
it has.
we're getting excited about them coming over to North America, and this happens. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
so
sad.
sort of for I think everyone has their moments like when Elvis died or when John Lennon was shot, and I
Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
remember both of those. I remember my mum's reaction to Elvis dying, and I remember personally John Lennon. I was old enough, but the one that impacted me most and probably is Paul Hester in Australia, and I won't sort of go in on that because I'll end up sort of tearing up a little bit as well. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I think we all have those sort of moments.
Well, Ian Curtis and yeah, Kurt Cobain for me, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
another one sort of
yeah,
close to your scene. So
yeah.
who
Very
in the
close.
Vancouver punk scene, who actually broke out? Who who actually is sort of quote unquote made a living out of it, or you know
I can't answer that question. I've been maybe Bodine, if he's still in the chat, could answer it. But the there were so many genius musicians in Vancouver, and made the Vancouver scene was so special. But they didn't get recording contracts, or they drank themselves or overdosed on heroin, or there's a lot of tragic tales that come out of this. And the sad fact is, the most of the people I knew that were playing music lived in poverty. Like, we had one band in town, the Pointed Sticks. Not sure if I played a clip from the Pointed Sticks, but they were signed by Stiff Records in the UK, who are like, Ian Dury and the Blockheads kind of um, label. And
yep,
we thought they were gonna be the ones to make it. They were much more pop sound, more accessible than that heavy punk sound, like the other bands in Vancouver, like DOA, who are still going at it. I don't.
yep,
They're still going at it. I think that's the band that's credited for terming the phrase hardcore in punk music. They put on a gig in '81 called Hardcore '81, and from what I read, that's the where the term hardcore came from. But I forgot what the question was. I started
that's okay.
rambling.
You've No, that's a good story. So one of the people when I did a bit of research, or you pointed me, is to this because one of the questions I ask you is you have this gap of as Australians we have at that in that era hard pub rock and then sort of the softer rock that happened as well at the same time and then sort of grew during the 80s. You pointed out, I think you were trying to work out whether there was a connection with this guy called Bob Rock. Um,
Oh,
was he in
Bob.
Vancouver? Yeah,
Bob Rock's a famous music producer from Vancouver, and he worked with like Brian Adams. I think everyone's heard of Brian Adams. He's
yeah. He also produced the Eight Arms to Hold You from Oh God, my brain is not working very well at the moment. But someone in the chat stream will pop in with it. But yeah, a few other famous, US bands. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
he's pretty big producer, but he started off just like the rest of us, like hanging out in the punk scene. And I remember the Devices, which was my first band, and I was just a teenager. We were headlining over, and Bob Rock has gone on to be, world famous music producer these days. Yeah, but he just started off in the trenches like the rest of us, part of the scene. Oh yeah, Metallica. Thanks, Bodine. But Bodine just pointed out to me how Bob Rock produced Metallica. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day saying, I've never actually heard Metallica. I couldn't. I have no idea what Metallica sounds like. Sorry, it wasn't my scene.
You can't download it from the internet either. So
we've got that video about them, but a DVD. I haven't watched it. The
yeah,
doco.
yeah, the actual band that I was trying to remember was Veruca Salt, which I actually love.
Oh yeah, Veruca Salt's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry, that was a brain fart.
Chicks.
Funny about that, Chicks. Yeah.
I love Chicks in punk and music. Yeah.
So my last question to you, Susan, is: what do your kids think of this?
My kids keep coming around saying, "What's Mummy doing on the internet?" No, no, I don't listen to the Dish Rags CD. We've got a CD that has 25 songs that were put together. But Scott, my husband, will take the children for a ride in the car, and they'll all listen to it. I don't know what they think. They think I'm freaky, weird ass mother. Yeah. Well,
yeah, whatever your mother
son,
did, it doesn't matter.
Come here, son. He's just going like this to me, like, oh, I can't get the thumbs. Yeah, Mom. Yeah, you're really cool.
You rock, Mom.
Yeah, I rock.
I like your shirt too, as well.
Oh yeah. Those are my big bazoombas.
Yep, at Zuzu.
That's Zuzu.
So just to close off today, I'd really like to thank you, Susan, for sharing your early part of your life, parts that can't be expressed in 140 characters in Twitter, and
it can't be.
It can't be, and like Stilgarian said in his last week's show, is these formative as listeners, but even more so when you're actually in a band and doing stuff. So I really thank you for giving us some great music this evening and some great stories, and I'm sure that we'll have more questions on Twitter for you as time goes on. So there's you and
Lane. I love her. Yeah, we're both on Twitter at Lane Hartwell at Zuzu.
So next week we're going to have Mark Pesce on the show, where we're going to talk about the futures, just to sort of see what a futurist actually does and how they come up with the future. Because I'm not a futurist, I like history more, so I'm interested to hear that. Obviously, Plinkies will be on very soon on Stilgarian Live, but for the last piece of music from Susan is from the Minutemen. We Jam Econo is the name of the track. Please listen to this. What is it? What's it called?
History Lesson Part 2.
History Lesson Part 2. Sorry.
Part 2. It's from a DVD called We Jam Econo, which is my religious beliefs in Facebook because of this band. Yeah, and this song.
Okay, so let's listen to it. Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Zuzu, for your time.
Yay!
See you over in Stilgarian Live.
It's awesome.
This whole thing with D. Boon, and his mother, this idea where you make up your own entertainment, your own activities, I think it was really intense on us, this whole idea of DIY and stuff. I guess there's a debate over this, you want things for young people to do so they don't get in gangs and in trouble like this. But if things are too set up and stuff, you end up running creating an army of robots anyway, There comes a period when you're going to have to come up and do things, become your own person, pick your own friends.